The movie opens with Lin Zhenshin, a hardworking career woman who devotes most of her days to her job. Despite this, Zhenshin is recognized by her boss for her outstanding dedication to the company, and her colleagues applaud her accomplishments. Her boss even encourages others to follow her example, and everyone toasts to Zhenshin's success. Zhenshin is thrilled and feels like her life is finally coming together, with a successful career and a loving partner. However, things take a turn for the worse when Zhenshin's boyfriend calls and reminds her of their plans, but she is stuck in the office. Her boss suddenly hands her some files and orders her to work overtime, and Zhenshin is too afraid to refuse. Although her coworkers silently signal to her to decline the request, Zhenshin ultimately agrees, causing frustration and anger among her colleagues. Zhenshin is filled with guilt and remorse over her decision to work overtime, so she attempts to lift her coworkers' spirits by buying snacks and drinks at the supermarket. However, when she spots her colleagues entering the store and complaining about her, Zhenshin quickly hides, feeling hurt by their criticisms. Her coworkers criticize her for being too eager to work overtime, believing that it's not worth sacrificing their personal lives for a small salary. They pity Zhenshin for being a sad and boring person who only cares about her career. Zhenshin is deeply saddened by their words, feeling as though her efforts have gone unappreciated. Later that evening, Zhenshin turns to her box of high school memories for comfort. She flips through her diary, which is filled with photos and stickers of her favorite artist, Andy Lau. Zhenshin recalls how she used to dream of attending his concerts and how that dream remains unfulfilled. Overcome with emotion, Zhenshin begins to cry, longing for the carefree days of her youth. The story takes us back to Zhenshin's high school days, where she wasn't the most attractive or intelligent student, but she always had a positive attitude. She spent most of her time with her two best friends, Chao Xiaoqi and Mei Mei, and daydreamed about her idol, Andy Lau. Even during class, Zhenshin was more interested in writing love letters to Andy Lau than paying attention to the teacher's lectures. At school, Zhenshin had a crush on Ouyang Feifan, a popular and talented basketball player who was also incredibly good-looking. Whenever Feifan appeared, Zhenshin became nervous and flustered, especially when he thanked her for opening the refrigerator in the cafeteria. Zhenshin would attend all of Feifan's basketball games and cheer the loudest for him from the sidelines. She would gaze at him from afar, admiring his skills and good looks. Despite her friends knowing about her crush, Zhenshin cherished her carefree adolescence. Zhenshin couldn't help but feel envious of her classmate and neighbor Tao Minmin, who was not only beautiful but also popular and intelligent. One day, while watching Minmin sift through a stack of love letters in frustration, Zhenshin could only stare in awe. It seemed that Minmin received love letters from male students almost every day, which made Zhenshin even more envious. However, things took an interesting turn when Minmin's best friend, Shen Qi, decided to publicly display the letters in front of the entire class. She threatened that anyone who dared to slip love letters into Minmin's desk would face the consequences. Amidst the pile of letters was one particularly odd letter that was written in English, but the grammar was incorrect. Despite her jealousy towards Minmin, Zhenshin had never taken the time to listen to her complaints about the overwhelming number of love letters she received. Zhenshin's heart skipped a beat when she felt an envelope in her desk drawer addressed to Lin Truly, which was her own name. Excited at first, she quickly became horrified when she read the contents of the letter. It ordered her to send a copy of the letter to 5 people within 3 days, or else face an ominous curse. Zhenshin was terrified and pounded on the table, drawing the attention of her entire class. At home, Zhenshin's parents always praised her older brother, who despite his punk appearance, was smart and received excellent grades. Zhenshin tried to defend herself, but her parents ignored her and doted on her brother with lots of vegetables and side dishes, leaving her with only rice and simple sides. Enraged, Zhenshin contemplated sending the curse letter to her brother. But she realized that if her brother were in trouble, she would be too. After much deliberation, Zhenshin decided to send the first letter to her math and homeroom teacher, Teacher Wang. Teacher Wang was known for his strict discipline and harsh punishments for poor grades. Zhenshin found herself in his crosshairs when she received a bad grade and he aimed to hit her hand with a wooden ruler. Quick on her feet, Zhenshin dodged the blow and slipped the curse letter into one of Mr. Huang's books. During recess, Zhenshin longed to catch a glimpse of her crush, Feifan. She hid behind a tree, hoping to hear his voice and get closer to him. To her delight, Feifan began playing the guitar and singing, even waving at Zhenshin as she watched from afar. But her happiness was short-lived as Minmin suddenly appeared, standing beside Feifan. Embarrassed, Zhenshin retreated back into hiding, watching as her crush smiled and whispered with Minmin. Heartbroken, Zhenshin chose to leave the scene. As Zhenshin walked past Minmin's silent house, she got the idea to give her a curse letter. She quietly slipped it into the mailbox and realized that she had 3 more to deliver. But things got complicated, and she was unsure how to proceed until she witnessed Feifan getting bullied by Tsu Taiyu. Taiyu was notorious for causing trouble, and no school would accept him as a student. However, he was appointed as a school patrol officer to keep an eye on undisciplined students, and that's when Zhenshin saw her chance to deliver the curse letter. While Taiyu and his friends friends were playing in the swimming pool, she slipped the letter into his bag and left quickly, relieved that her mission went off without a hitch. Later that day, Taiyu and his friends were walking together when he discovered the pink, scented letter in his bag. Thinking it was a love letter, he was thrilled and chased away his teasing friends. As he read the letter, he didn't notice the oncoming car and was hit, sending him flying onto the road. Genshin was horrified to hear about Taiyu's accident and didn't expect such a terrible outcome. Meanwhile, Taiyu was furious and determined to find the person who sent him the curse letter. He ordered his friends to search every classroom for evidence and clues, and Sakuragi discovered Genshin's desk full of Andy Lau stickers, the same as the one on the curse letter, and 2 similar letters in her drawer. When Genshin returned home from school, Sakuragi and Daihe confronted her and took her to see Taiyu. Genshin was terrified when she saw Taiyu's intimidating appearance with his odd hairstyle, round eyes, and cynical smile. Taiyu was pleased to see her scared and even tried to befriend her, but it was not a genuine offer. He wanted to coerce her into becoming his slave, and his friends were all too eager to assist him. Taiyu wasted no time in forcing Genshin into slavery. She was forced to do the homework and assignments for the lowest performing class, which happened to be Taiyu's own class. In addition, Genshin had to pay for their lunches as well. She agreed to these conditions to protect Fei Fan, who Taiyu had threatened to harm. Taiyu was aware of Genshin's feelings for Fei Fan, as his friend had discovered a photo of him in her desk. As a result, Genshin was obliged to complete Taiyu's homework and provide him with food every day. One day, Genshin rushed to Taiyu's classroom to hand in his homework. As she was about to leave, Taiyu stopped her and promised to reward her hard work with a signed photo of the famous actor Andy Lau. Overjoyed, Genshin smiled and eagerly accepted the offer, but her happiness was short-lived. Taiyu and his friends burst into laughter, revealing that it was all a joke. Disappointed and embarrassed, Genshin fled from the scene. Another day, Taiyu tried to persuade Genshin to skip class and go with him to the mall instead. Despite being scared of climbing the school wall, Genshin refused to break the rules and join in. However, Taiyu persisted and even helped Genshin overcome her fear to climb over. Once they arrived, Taiyu and his friends played roller skating, leaving Genshin out of the fun. Struggling to balance, Genshin felt left out and almost fell. When Taiyu noticed her distress, he suddenly ordered her to follow him. Frustrated and angry, Genshin wanted to refuse, but felt powerless to resist Taiyu's demands. Genshin's terror-filled screams echoed through the amusement park as she lost her grip and fell during the game. Taiyu found it amusing and laughed as he pretended to be concerned, only to go back to playing once he realized Genshin was okay. As Genshin hobbled off to buy Taiyu some squid meatballs, she grumbled to herself and cursed the hard floor that had hurt her. Suddenly, a group of people appeared with batons, sending everyone running for cover, including the food vendor. Genshin was bewildered, but her confusion turned to fear as the bullies descended on Taiyu and his friends. One of them managed to knock Taiyu down, and Genshin watched in horror as the beating continued. In a moment of bravery, Genshin picked up Taiyu's fallen stick and threw it at him. The tide turned, and Taiyu and his friends fought back, beating the bullies to a pulp. But Genshin was too frightened to participate and hid as the fight raged on. When the bullies finally left, they saw Genshin's face and uniform, and she screamed in fear, covering herself up. The school authorities took notice of the incident, and Genshin found herself in the principal's office. Terrified, she wanted to speak the truth, but Sakuragi signaled her not to say anything. Daihe showed her a photo of Fei Fan and Taiyu and deliberately squeezed it, a clear warning that they would hurt Fei Fan if Genshin dared to expose them. Genshin was terrified and didn't dare to tell the truth to the principal, who became angry and punished her by making her clean the swimming pool. She felt like arguing, but her courage failed her, and she left the room feeling defeated. As she wandered the school, she saw Fei Fan walking towards her, causing her to panic and seek a hiding place. Trying to act nonchalant, she pretended to read the school announcements while Fei Fan passed by. However, her 2 best friends were excited to see him and drew his attention to her. Fei Fan called out to her, and she made a silly face to avoid talking to him, but he complimented her and revealed that he shared her interest in roller skating. He even invited her to skate together sometime. Genshin was elated and couldn't contain her joy, especially when her friends encouraged her that Fei Fan now knew her name and might ask her out. Genshin had found a silver lining in her misfortune of being Taiyu's servant, and she and her friends laughed and danced through their punishment. Her heart was full of joy after receiving compliments from Fei Fan. While singing to herself as she cleaned up the pool, Genshin heard voices nearby and approached to investigate. She was shocked to discover Fei Fan and Min Min in a serious conversation. As she listened in, she grew sad to hear Fei Fan comforting a crying Min Min and offering to be the father of her future child. Fei Fan eventually ended the conversation and asked Min Min to leave, but he was surprised to find a pool net nearby, even though nobody had been around earlier. Though Min Min was scared, Fei Fan tried to calm her down and urged her to leave. Genshin was still in shock after overhearing Fei Fan and Min Min's conversation and cried, deliberately sinking to the bottom of the pool. Taiyu jumped in and saved her, but he was emotional and crying when they surfaced. Embarrassed, Taiyu pretended to scold Genshin and assumed she tried to end her life because of the punishment. Later, they dried off and drank on the school roof, where Genshin found Taiyu's love letter to Min Min, which was uncreative and quoted song lyrics. Genshin mocked him, and Taiyu got annoyed and crushed his drink can. Trying to cheer him up, Genshin shared her secret love story, and Taiyu suggested they work together to break up Feifan and Min Min so they could pursue their love interests. They began investigating and followed Feifan and Min Min, who were about to meet somewhere. As it turned out, Min Min and Feifan's rendezvous wasn't a romantic date after all, but a meetup to take care of an adorable little black dog that they believed was their baby. While relieved they weren't mistaken, Taiyu had other plans. He was determined to keep Min Min away from Feifan and came up with a devious scheme. One day after school, Taiyu's friends blocked Min Min's path, hoping to encourage Taiyu to confess his feelings to her. However, Min Min wasn't interested in Taiyu, who had a reputation for being a troublemaker. She sarcastically smiled and even bumped into Taiyu with her bicycle, which only made him more upset. After Taiyu's friends left, Genshin emerged from hiding and suggested they give up since it was clear that Min Min wasn't interested in Taiyu. But Taiyu refused to give up and came up with a new plan to kidnap the puppy so that Min Min wouldn't have a reason to meet Feifan in secret. Despite Genshin's reservations, she agreed to help Taiyu with his plan. Genshin had a cunning plan to make it look like the dog was lost rather than kidnapped. She used milk to create fake paw prints and hoped that Min Min and Feifan wouldn't suspect anything. Taiyu, however, became agitated and urged Genshin to leave before they were caught. The two of them then took the puppy to the roof of the building. As they reached the roof, Genshin was surprised to see Taiyu petting the dog gently. She had never known him to be an animal lover. Taiyu then decided that Genshin should take care of the puppy at least until they found a new owner for her. But as Taiyu handed over the dog, it suddenly peed, shocking them both. However, they soon burst into laughter and Taiyu wasn't angry with the dog's behavior. As they settled down, Genshin asked Taiyu about the dog's name. He suggested they name her Andy after his idol, but Genshin objected to using a male name for a female dog. Taiyu then proposed using the initials ND, but Genshin still didn't like it, and an argument ensued between the two of them, culminating in a chase around the roof. In class, Min Min was feeling sad and worried about her missing dog, while Genshin tried to hide her guilt behind a book. Suddenly, their teacher, Teacher Wang, entered the classroom and announced that he had received a curse letter from a student. He showed the letter to the class and scolded the anonymous writer for their stupidity. Genshin felt guilty and wanted to confess but didn't dare to. After class, she went to the teacher's office to turn herself in, but to her surprise, she found Taiyu and Min Min already there. Taiyu was being reprimanded by the teacher, but he seemed more interested in flirting with Genshin than in his punishment. Before Genshin could confess, Taiyu took the blame for the curse letter. The teacher was relieved and dismissed Genshin, leaving her and Min Min stunned but silent. Taiyu's homeroom teacher and another teacher scolded him at the same time, which annoyed Taiyu. He asked them to talk one by one, and Genshin watched him curiously while pretending to walk away. She overheard the teachers talking about Taiyu's past achievements and how he became a naughty child. After school, Genshin thanked Taiyu for helping her and confessed that she sent the third curse letter to Min Min. Taiyu was angry at first but forgave her when she apologized. Genshin then showed him a poetry book and suggested that he imitate poetry to avoid getting caught cheating. She also speculated that Min Min might be interested in Taiyu since girls are hard to understand. Taiyu smiled at her suggestion, but it remained to be seen if Genshin's advice would work. The following day, Genshin observed Feifan's basketball game while flipping through her junior high yearbook. As she browsed through the book, she stumbled upon Feifan's photo and noticed that he used to be classmates with Taiyu. Intrigued, she approached Feifan to inquire about their past. Genshin's two friends who were reading a magazine together were caught off guard by her bold move. However, Genshin persisted and asked Feifan if he knew Taiyu. Initially, Feifan was hesitant to speak, but eventually he opened up and revealed that he and Taiyu used to be best friends in middle school. He recounted a tragic incident where he, Taiyu, and their other friend, Ma Suyuan, went to the beach after school. Suyuan suggested a challenge to see who could swim the farthest in the sea within 3 minutes. Taiyu accepted the challenge, but unfortunately, Suyuan drowned during the competition. Feifan forbade Taiyu from attempting to save Suyuan because he deemed it too dangerous. Ever since that day, Taiyu blamed Feifan for his friend's death and harbored a deep resentment towards him. As Genshin held onto the yearbook tightly, she realized the reason behind Taiyu's tears at the pond and his subsequent assistance to her. Taiyu was traumatized by Suyuan's death, and it explained his animosity towards Feifan. Genshin felt a newfound determination to help Taiyu overcome his pain and guilt. Genshin grabbed a red chalk and marked a line on the schoolyard, patiently waiting for Taiyu to arrive. When Taiyu showed up, Genshin surprised him by appearing on roller skates and inviting him to a race. She promised that the winner could make a wish. However, Genshin quickly fell, causing Taiyu to laugh. Despite Taiyu's taunts and insults, Genshin refused to give up and eventually managed to cross the red line and win the race. Taiyu didn't understand the point of the race, but Genshin revealed that Fei Fan had confided in her about the incident with Suyuan. She explained that Taiyu had helped her at the pond because he was still traumatized by Suyuan's death. Genshin urged Taiyu to reconcile with Fei Fan, as she believed that Suyuan would not want them to be enemies. Taiyu became furious and grabbed both of Genshin's hands, threatening to punch her. Genshin fell silent as Taiyu let go of her hands and stormed off. However, Genshin chased after Taiyu, only to fall down again. Taiyu stopped and turned around to help her. Genshin expressed her desire to race again, to which Suyuan agreed. Taiyu realized that the accident was his own fault and remained silent, helping Genshin up. She reminded him that the winner could make a wish. Taiyu asked what Genshin wanted, and she requested to see the old Taiyu. This triggered a memory in Taiyu's mind, where he only cried when he saw Suyuan drinking and throwing away half of his drink. Suyuan smiled at him, and Taiyu felt calm as he walked home. The classroom was chaotic as usual, with students playing and disregarding the lesson. However, Taiyu appeared differently, sitting quietly and neatly dressed, waiting for the teacher to arrive. When the thin male teacher entered, he was unfazed by the rowdy class and had experience in teaching in difficult situations. A bespectacled student at the front stood up to greet him, and Taiyu followed suit. The other students begrudgingly saluted the teacher but quickly returned to their previous behavior. Taiyu grew frustrated and slammed his hand on the desk, causing his friends to jolt back to their seats. The teacher nervously asked if Taiyu had any questions, which stunned both his classmates and the teacher. Taiyu inquired about the previous lesson, causing a stir in the classroom. The teacher replied that they were going to discuss Chapter 7, page 125, on the Second World War. Taiyu attempted to find the page, but the teacher corrected him, pointing out that he had the wrong book. Taiyu had been misbehaving in class, demanding his friends to open the book that they did not have. The only person who had the book was the bespectacled student sitting in the front of the classroom. Reluctantly, Taiyu and his friends joined the students' group. On Sunday, Genshin was getting ready to meet Taiyu to study together at a restaurant. She felt confident in her makeup, but when she met Taiyu, he teased her for looking like a mature woman going to a temple festival. Irritated, Genshin walked away, leaving Taiyu behind, still mocking her. Taiyu chased after her and took her bag, carrying both bags as Genshin used to do. Genshin was thrilled to walk with Taiyu, especially when she overheard some girls praising Taiyu's attractive figure. She was so happy that she did not notice a speeding car coming around the corner behind her. The car honked, startling Genshin, and Taiyu quickly hugged her to protect her from the oncoming vehicle. The air was heavy with silence as Taiyu reluctantly released Genshin from his embrace and motioned for her to step aside while he walked on the side of the highway. To Genshin's surprise, the once rude and grumbling Taiyu had become gentle and romantic. As they arrived at the restaurant, Taiyu found a seat while Genshin went to buy food. While waiting in line, Genshin was surprised by the sudden appearance of Minmin and Chiyi, who saw Taiyu studying alone. After some hesitation, Minmin approached Taiyu, encouraging him to study hard and offering her help. Genshin returned, only to learn that Minmin had promised to give her biodata to Taiyu, causing him to blush. As Minmin left, Taiyu became confused as to why she had accused him of misspelling Destiny as Disney in his previous letter when Disney was his pseudonym. When Genshin asked about their conversation, Taiyu simply said that they had sat together. After Taiyu's encounter with Minmin, he transformed into a dedicated student, inspiring his classmates to follow suit by changing their classroom environment and behavior. However, Genshin was unsure whether Taiyu changed because of his promise to her or because of Minmin's encouragement. Whenever Taiyu smiled at Minmin in passing, Genshin felt a twinge of sadness, knowing that Taiyu had feelings for her. One day, while at the bookstore buying the latest textbook, Genshin saw Andy Lau's poster and couldn't contain her excitement. She hugged the poster and screamed, expressing her dream of seeing him in concert in Taipei. Taiyu smiled, promising to ask Andy Lau to sing for her one day. However, their moment was cut short when the shop owner got angry at Genshin for holding the poster, prompting Taiyu to grab her hand and run. When Taiyu and Genshin reunited for studying, Taiyu surprised Genshin with his excellent math skills honed from competing in science Olympiads. He took the opportunity to help Genshin, who had always struggled with math. Their enthusiasm for learning amazed their friend who accompanied them. Later, Taiyu walked Genshin home but refused to accompany her to her doorstep because he wanted to see Minmin. This sparked a playful exchange between them, during which Taiyu showed Genshin a keychain with an Andy Lau doll on it that he had wanted to give to Minmin. Genshin caught the keychain and was thrilled. As they walked, Genshin asked Taiyu about what men considered a pretty girl. Taiyu teased her by saying that Feifan idolized Vivian Chao, but he preferred cute girls like Yuki Uchida and Noriko Sakai. Genshin playfully complained that Taiyu only liked Japanese actresses, to which he simply smiled. Then, out of the blue, she asked Taiyu to teach her how to rollerblade because Feifan was good at it. Taiyu agreed to teach her. The next day, after school, Genshin purchased a magazine with a Japanese cover artist and hoped to emulate Taiyu's idol style. As she was approaching her home, she saw a trendy girl with fashionable makeup waiting outside. It turned out that the girl was waiting for her older brother named San-san. Genshin was intrigued by the trendy girl's hairstyle, which resembled that of the Japanese cover artist from her magazine. She asked the girl how she could dress up like her. However, San-san, Genshin's brother, suddenly appeared and reprimanded Genshin. But to Genshin's surprise, the girl defended her and offered to help her. Genshin couldn't help but smile gleefully, ignoring San-san's angry glare. The next day, when Min learned about Feifan's ankle injury, she grew concerned. However, things took a sour turn when Chiyi showed up and implied that Genshin's friends were not genuine friends of Feifan. Chiyi greeted Feifan with enthusiasm, which angered Mei, but Xiao Qi stopped her from acting impulsively. They were surprised that Genshin was not present, but saw an opportunity to capture Feifan's attention. Feifan's eyes wandered and landed on Genshin, who looked different that morning. Usually, her hair was messy, her bangs pinned up, and she wore glasses. But this time, her hair was neatly combed, and she wore bangs without her glasses. As Genshin entered the cafeteria, she couldn't help but smile at Feifan, who caught her eye. Taiyu, who was eating noodles nearby, also couldn't resist noticing Genshin's sudden transformation. Genshin confidently walked towards the ice cream box, but as she picked up a cone, she felt hesitant about giving it to Feifan. In a surprising move, Taiyu pushed her towards Feifan and gave her the signal to offer him the ice cream. Meanwhile, Min, who felt overlooked by Feifan, decided to head straight to class. Feifan, on the other hand, complimented Genshin's newfound confidence and wished her the best of luck on her upcoming exams. Genshin's two friends were ecstatic and showered her with congratulations for her recent accomplishment. However, Genshin didn't seem as thrilled and instead glanced over at Taiyu, who was pretending to be preoccupied with his bowl of noodles. A few days later, the exam results were announced, and everyone was shocked to discover that Taiyu had ranked 10th. Despite the surprise, their elation was short-lived as the school's principal was replaced with a stern and merciless replacement. The new principal had no mercy towards the residents of class 317, including Taiyu's classmates, and even replaced the school patrol officer. The once vibrant and energetic class was now regarded as low class, and the students were left to suffer the consequences of the new principal's strict rules. Despite being belittled by the new principal, Taiyu remained steadfast and showed no fear. In fact, he even boldly held out his hand as a sign of defiance before leaving the principal's office. However, things took a turn for the worse when the headmaster accused Taiyu of cheating on his exam results and declared that he did not deserve his 10th place ranking. When the headmaster asked if anyone had helped Taiyu cheat, all the students remained silent. As a result, the headmaster decided to punish the entire class, but Taiyu refused to let them suffer for something they didn't do. In the end, Taiyu was the only one punished and was forced to run around the field 50 times. As the other students watched Taiyu being punished, they were concerned but too afraid to intervene. Meanwhile, Chiyi spread rumors that Taiyu had cheated on the exam, but Genshin staunchly defended him, knowing that he had worked hard to earn his ranking. Despite Genshin's efforts to persuade the headmaster, he remained adamant and even threatened to increase Taiyu's punishment. Exhausted from the grueling run, Taiyu eventually collapsed. From then on, Genshin became restless and worried about Taiyu's whereabouts, as he seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Genshin sat at the table, lost in thought as she looked at Taiyu's scribbles. Her friends ranted about Principal Chuan's strict policies, but Genshin remained silent, deep in thought. Suddenly, an idea struck her: a boycott against Principal Chuan. With the help of her 4 friends, Genshin created flyers and passed them out to other students. But despite their efforts, few students wanted to receive or read the flyers, as they were too afraid of the principal's wrath. Genshin was determined to distribute leaflets to raise awareness about an upcoming event. However, her plans were thwarted when Chiyi intervened and prevented her from handing them to Min. Despite feeling disheartened, Genshin regained her spirit when Feifan offered to help distribute the leaflets with the help of his friends. Unfortunately, their efforts were quickly uncovered by teacher Huang, who punished Genshin for 2 days for her actions. At home, Genshin faced more criticism from her parents for her actions, and they even grounded her to her room. However, her parents' anger soon turned towards each other when they received a call from teacher Huang. As Genshin's parents argued, the phone rang, and her mother answered to a prank caller who quickly hung up. Suspecting that it was Taiyu, Genshin rushed to her room and waited for his call. When the phone rang, she answered to find Taiyu on the other end, who was concerned about her after being hospitalized. Despite wanting to talk to him, Genshin abruptly ended the conversation, asking him not to call for 2 days. Taiyu was confused by her sudden detachment, especially since her mother's earlier angry response raised red flags for him. Genshin was in the middle of writing her sentence when she was interrupted by the sound of pebbles hitting her window. As she stepped out onto the balcony, she was surprised to see Taiyu standing outside her house. Despite trying to play it cool, the emotions between them were palpable. Taiyu claimed to be passing by, but Genshin couldn't help but stare at him with a longing look, silently urging him to open up about his recent troubles. As Taiyu prepared to leave, Genshin suddenly asked him to wait for her. He waited anxiously, unsure of what to expect. When she reappeared, she was holding their beloved dog, a gesture that touched Taiyu deeply. As Taiyu stumbled during the punishment run, Genshin rushed over to check on him. After confirming that he was just dehydrated and exhausted, Taiyu revealed that he was happy to be suspended, which upset Genshin. As they conversed, Taiyu noticed Genshin's gaze lingering on the bandage on his arm and quickly discarded it to avoid worrying her. Curious about her own suspension, Genshin joked that anyone associated with Taiyu was bound to be punished. Taiyu then revealed that he had come to find her because he remembered her words about girls being indirect. Taking ND, the dog they had rescued together with them, Taiyu led Genshin to a playground that had been transformed with decorative lights. Taiyu surprised Genshin with a pair of roller skates and offered to teach her. As they practiced together, Taiyu proved to be a patient teacher, helping Genshin up every time she stumbled and holding her hand to keep her steady. Together, they laughed and enjoyed each other's company as ND watched on from the sidelines. During the school festival, the hall was packed with excited students and their guardians. Principal Chuan called out the names of the students who ranked 1st to 10th, causing cheers and applause to fill the room. Fei Fan beamed with pride as she was announced the winner of the top spot, while Min Min smiled contentedly as she was declared 5th. Genshin cast a glance towards Taiyu, who gave her a reassuring smile in return, as he was next in line for the 10th place. However, the principal suddenly skipped over Taiyu's name, insisting that he had cheated and therefore forfeited his place. Taiyu stood up in disbelief but immediately fainted from the shock of the unjust accusation. While Taiyu's friends grumbled in anger, the principal belittled him as a useless student. As Genshin tried to console him, Taiyu sat there in silent disappointment, feeling helpless as the principal disregarded his reputation and dignity. Unable to bear the injustice any longer, Genshin bravely stood up and walked towards the stage, determined to fight for Taiyu's honor. She even broke a few rules to grab the principal's attention, but he remained indifferent and refused to listen. Genshin continued to speak up, questioning the need for rules if they could be so easily disregarded. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Fei Fan suddenly appeared on stage and confessed that he had cheated on the exam, demanding punishment for his wrongdoing. Genshin was overjoyed and touched by Fei Fan's unexpected support. Fei Fan's father couldn't believe it when he heard that his son was accused of cheating. Fei Fan defended himself by insinuating that if the principal could accuse Taiyu of cheating, he could do the same. The headmaster was furious and threatened to punish Fei Fan, but the students came to his defense. Mei Mei even stripped down to her shorts to show that she was willing to be punished for breaking the rules. This inspired the rest of the students to admit their own transgressions, including Min Min, who brought a communication device to school. The homeroom teachers were thrilled to see the students standing up for each other and cheering on Genshin, who had encouraged them to be model students. Genshin argued that grades and rules didn't define a person's character and that everyone makes mistakes. Fei Fan stood by her side, impressed by her bravery. Principal Chuan was angry and wanted to punish Genshin for her rebellious behavior, but the old principal intervened and promised to work with him to improve the school. This promise united the students and put an end to the tension. The school was celebrating its birthday and the students were thrilled to start a water balloon war. Genshin and Taiyu paired up and had a blast throwing balloons at each other. Fei Fan appeared and became Genshin's shield, while Min Min hid behind Taiyu's back. They all had fun together, laughing and playing. During the school vacation, they went camping on motorcycles. Genshin was paired with Fei Dan, while Min Min was paired with Taiyu. They all arrived at the camping site and enjoyed dancing and laughing together. Later that night, Taiyu went to gather firewood and confessed to Genshin that he found her personality more attractive than Min Min's. He even joked that she was just as beautiful as Min Min. Genshin blushed, but quickly became playful and tried to kick Taiyu. They laughed together as Taiyu approached her to pick up the firewood she was carrying. As they sat beneath the twinkling stars, Genshin implored Taiyu to promise her something if they ended up attending different colleges, to work hard and graduate, to avoid fighting, and to not hurt those who cared for him. Taiyu solemnly agreed and then asked for a promise in return. Jen Shin was taken aback when Taiyu suddenly leaned in close to her face, but he only had a lighthearted request that she never mix sesame oil with noodles. Although Jen Shin initially feigned annoyance, she eventually smiled, knowing that she always got the noodle orders wrong. When a shooting star streaked across the sky, Jen Shin eagerly urged Taiyu to make a wish. Though he was hesitant at first, he eventually raised his hand and joined in, casting his own silent hope into the cosmos. Little did they know, Fei Fan was secretly observing them from behind a tree. As soon as the school exams drew to a close, Mei Mei was informed by Sakuragi that Taiyu had been mysteriously absent for over a week and had even missed the exams. Disturbed by the news, Jen Shin attempted to call Taiyu that night, but her efforts were met with silence. The following day, Jen Shin set out for somewhere in a hurry, but her dash was halted when she unexpectedly caught sight of Taiyu slipping into the principal's office. Feeling an urgent need to speak with him, Jen Shin loitered nervously, her heart racing with anticipation. Upon noticing Jen Shin's presence, Taiyu made a conscious effort to evade her, striding away without a second glance. Despite her repeated attempts to reach him, Taiyu kept moving until he was finally forced to halt when Jen Shin physically obstructed his path. Concerned about his absence from the exam, Jen Shin beseeched Taiyu for an explanation, only to be met with a curt response that it was none of her business. As Taiyu lazed about, unwilling to elaborate, Jen Shin's mounting frustration boiled over, and she confronted him about his propensity for fighting. In response, Taiyu simply glared at her, unfazed by her tears. Infuriated, Jen Shin vowed to sever ties with him and stormed off, wiping away her tears. From that point on, the two studiously avoided each other, their once close bond irreparably frayed as they silently passed each other in the school corridors. On her birthday, Jen Shin returned home to find Andy Lau's stand in front of her house. Excitedly, she thought it was Taiyu, but it turned out to be Dahe and Sakuragi, who wished her a happy birthday. Although they didn't know Taiyu's whereabouts, he had remembered her special day and sent her a gift. Dahe explained that Jen Shin could only open and listen to the contents of the cassette when she passed her university exam. Overjoyed, Jen Shin blushed and hugged Andy Lau's stand, convinced that the gift must contain something special. The next day, Jen Shin and her best friends were planning to celebrate her birthday during recess when Taiyu passed in front of her class. Thrilled, Jen Shin thought Taiyu was looking for her and rushed out to meet him. As they made their way to the top of the school building, they discussed Taiyu's gift. However, when Jen Shin handed him her diary to fill in her bio, Min Min appeared, carrying an umbrella. Taiyu smiled at her and took her hand, leaving Jen Shin alone with a heavy heart. As Taiyu approached Jen Shin, she asked if he was looking for her. Taiyu then admitted that Min Min had confessed to liking him. Stunned, Jen Shin struggled to hide her tears and congratulated Taiyu, but her heart was clearly shattered. Taiyu didn't seem too enthusiastic about congratulating her either. Trying to lift her spirits, Taiyu suggested that she could be with Fei Fan. Suddenly, it started raining, and Min Min opened her umbrella and walked towards Taiyu. Jen Shin refused to join them and ran away with her book. Taiyu called after her, but Jen Shin refused to come back and stayed away. While running, she slipped and fell, and Taiyu rushed to help her. However, she gestured for him to stay away as she didn't want him to see her crying. Once she got away, she couldn't hold back her tears any longer. The day went by in a blur for Jen Shin, who remained sad and heartbroken. She spent some time staring at the keychain Taiyu had given her, lost in her thoughts. When Mei Mei showed up with gossip about Andy Lau having a girlfriend, Jen Shin didn't even react, consumed by her own sadness. Everyone dismissed Mei Mei's claims as just rumors. Days later, Jen Shin entered the classroom and overheard Chi comforting Min Min, who was crying because she felt like Taiyu had played her. It turned out that Taiyu had suddenly gone abroad after Min Min confessed her feelings for him. Chi advised Min Min to stay away from that strange guy. Jen Shin is devastated to hear that Taiyu has left the country and she can't find him anywhere. Meanwhile, Mei Mei gossips with their friends about Taiyu's expulsion from school and departure, but everyone hushes her when Jen Shin enters the room. Despite her efforts to carry on as usual, Jen Shin can't help but feel Taiyu's absence in her life. She's reminded of him when she almost gets hit by a car and feels like he's there to protect her, but it's actually Fei Fan who steps in. While Fei Fan is interested in spending time with her, Jen Shin is still mourning Taiyu and often goes roller skating with ND to take her mind off things. However, she realizes that Taiyu has motivated her to study harder and improve herself, and she's grateful for that. Jen Shin rifled through her desk drawer and stumbled upon a letter adorned with Andy Lau's sticker, just like the curse letter she had once made. Intrigued, she unfolded the note and noticed that it was intricately folded in a unique way. The letter contained a simple yet heartfelt request: would the stunning Jen Shin be willing to be his friend? After a tumultuous period of studying, Jen Shin finally succeeded in passing her university exams. Fei Fan, her companion, suggested they take a stroll to celebrate her triumph. As they walked, Jen Shin expressed her gratitude to Fei Fan for his helpful notes, especially in math, a subject that had been challenging for her. Fei Fan, ever the thoughtful friend, reminded Jen Shin not to overlook the recording from Taiyu, a promise he had made to the latter. During a camping trip, Fei Fan divulged that he had witnessed Jen Shin and Taiyu together. Fei Fan had also talked to Taiyu about Jen Shin, Shin, learning that the two had connected over the curse letter. Initially, Taiyu despised Jen Shin, but after reading the contents of the letter, he realized that she was actually a kind-hearted girl. Jen Shin had apologized in the letter and expressed her belief that Taiyu could change his fate for the better. Instead of being angry, Taiyu was intrigued and wanted to know Jen Shin better. So, he used the tactic of befriending her to keep her close. Taiyu's feelings for Jen Shin grew stronger over time. He had saved her from drowning in the pool without a second thought, and when they first studied together, he was incredibly nervous, waiting anxiously for her arrival. It was then that Taiyu realized that he had developed feelings for her. Taiyu even expressed his gratitude for the car that had almost hit Jen Shin, as it had allowed him to embrace her tightly and feel her heart racing in his arms. When Min Min joined Taiyu, he didn't want Jen Shin to misunderstand, so he kept quiet. But the silence made the atmosphere awkward between them. Taiyu revealed that his mistreatment of Jen Shin was just a cover for him to get closer to her. He loved being with her and remembered everything she said, even her likes and dislikes. So when he gave Jen Shin Andy Lau's keychain at the store, he was too embarrassed to tell her the truth. Later, when Jen Shin said nothing was wrong over the phone, Taiyu rushed to her house, despite being weak. He realized that he liked Jen Shin, but he lacked the courage to tell her because she liked Fei Fan. Taiyu hoped to be in Jen Shin's prayers when they prayed during a shooting star. He even shared Jen Shin's habits with Fei Fan so he could get closer to her. Taiyu also knew that Jen Shin wanted to study at Taiwan University but struggled with math. So he made notes for her to make studying math easier and left them with Fei Fan to make Jen Shin think he had helped her. Fei Fan shared the details of his last meeting with Taiyu during the camping trip, which left Jen Shin in tears. Taiyu had gone abroad for surgery to treat internal injuries he sustained from being hit by a car, suffering a head injury while roller skating, and running 50 laps that caused blood clots in his head. Taiyu didn't want to worry Jen Shin, so he kept his condition a secret from her. When Jen Shin saw Taiyu fighting recently, it was to protect her. Taiyu was saddened by Jen Shin's misunderstanding, but he urged her not to worry about him. Jen Shin was devastated after hearing Fei Fan's account of the whole story. She felt regret, but it was too late to do anything about it now. At evening, Jen Shin sat on the bench where she used to practice roller skating with Taiyu. She listened to Taiyu's recorded voice through her earphones and felt a mix of emotions. Taiyu believed that Jen Shin was happy with Fei Fan, while he was with Min Min. They had kept their promise to help each other get closer to their crushes. As Jen Shin turned around, she saw Taiyu sitting beside her. He smiled at her while confessing that even though she was short and sometimes silly and liked other people, he still liked her. Taiyu bared his heart to Jen Shin, leaving her in tears. He urged her to look up at the sky because he would also be looking up at the same starry sky. Taiyu ended the recording by declaring his love for Jen Shin. The story takes us to a moment in Jen Shin's life when she has reached maturity. On a particular night, she returns to a familiar place while listening to a voice recording left by Taiyu, the person she likes. Looking at her diary, Jen Shin discovers Taiyu's name written inside and feels a new sense of determination. The next day, she walks into her boss's office with a newfound confidence and submits her resignation letter, surprising her colleagues who are used to her obeying everything her boss says. They admire her bravery, and Jen Shin feels proud of herself. But things don't go smoothly for her. When Jen Shin returns home, her boyfriend is upset about her decision to quit her job, fearing that they will struggle financially. Despite his nagging, Jen Shin stands up for herself and decides to end their relationship. Jen Shin is a fan of Andy Lau, but she feels both brave and foolish at the same time when she finally sees him in person. She can't believe that he's still so popular after such a long career. Despite her admiration, Jen Shin is frustrated that she has never been able to get a ticket to see him perform live. As she walks around the concert area, Jen Shin can only look longingly at Andy Lau's stand board, feeling envious of those who were lucky enough to have tickets. She settles for taking a picture with Andy Lau's poster, listening to his songs on her phone. As Jen Shin stands lost in thought, a man enters the shop and a keychain falls in front of him. He picks it up and sees that it belongs to Jen Shin. He walks over to her and shows her the keychain. She turns around and is shocked to see Andy Lau standing in front of her. Andy gestures for her to keep calm and not draw attention to him, as he is trying to enjoy a break from the spotlight. Jen Shin pretends she isn't a fan, but her cover is blown when she accidentally unplugs her earphones and Andy's singing voice is heard. She tries to play it off by saying a friend downloaded the song, not knowing it was his. Jen Shin even tries to show off another song from her collection, but accidentally reveals a picture of herself with Andy's poster. Despite her awkwardness, Andy is amused and not angry with her behavior. He asks to take a photo with her, which makes Jen Shin overjoyed. She can't stop smiling as she poses for the picture with Andy, feeling like the luckiest person in the world. As Andy Lau was leaving, Jen Shin stopped him and requested an autograph, even though she claimed not to be a fan. Andy was surprised but obliged and wrote it to someone named Lin Truly. He asked if Jen Shin had attended his concert, to which she confessed but was disappointed to have missed it due to sold-out tickets. However, Andy gave her a lifeline by providing a cell phone number to call for help. Jenshin couldn't believe her luck and beamed with excitement. Later that night, Jenshin arrived at the concert venue and called the number provided by Andy. She identified herself as Lin Truly, and to her surprise, it was Taiyu who answered the call. He greeted her with a reference to a silly game they used to play, which left her speechless. Suddenly, the big screen displayed Andy Lau's posters, and Andy himself invited them to come in as the concert was starting. Andy revealed that he dedicated the concert to everyone who truly loves someone, as it was inspired by his friend's desire to keep a promise to his first love. Jenshin was moved to tears upon hearing that the concert was dedicated to everyone who truly loved someone, and she turned to Taiyu, overwhelmed with emotion. Taiyu asked her why she didn't come in since the concert was starting soon, but Jenshin replied that she didn't have a ticket. Taiyu smiled and did what he used to do in the past. He made a poster of Andy Lau singing. The two friends laughed as they recalled Taiyu's old promise. As they approached each other, they greeted each other warmly. Taiyu then took Jenshin inside to watch Andy Lau's concert live, fulfilling his promise to her and making his own biggest dream come true. The moral lesson of the story is to prioritize our own happiness and well-being over the approval of others and to follow our dreams and passions, even if they seem unrealistic. We should trust our instincts and not be afraid to stand up for ourselves, even if it means disappointing others.